And just wanting to commend you for your talks at the Rick Rules Symposium on Natural Resources Investing in Boca Raton 2 weeks ago. Any reflections you have, things that surprised you the most about the conference?
Yeah, I mean, I was surprised at the response from my presentation. And, you had Nomi Prince there, you had James Rickards, you had Grant Williams, Daniel DiMartino Booth, and Rick came up to me and said, looks like you may have, and I don't know the actual turnout yet, but he said, you may have actually won the speaker of the event, the top speaker, which really blew me away. I had a lot of, I guess you would say, positive responses, but that's not even really the right statement. I think people were really shocked, I guess you could say, that the things that I spoke about have really been ignored by the mainstream. And whether we're talking Gold 3 classification as a Tier 1 or Saudi Arabia signing a joint military cooperation agreement with Russia, these are the things we've beaten over the head on your show and others. Nigeria doing the same thing. Russia and China, on behalf of the BRICS nations, announcing a new world reserve currency. Saudi Arabia contemplating joining BRICS. And I don't think there is contemplating. When it's brought out this way, it means they've done it. It's a soft sell. And the things that, these very pivotal, important events are being ignored, completely whitewashed by the media. You have to dig to find it. Of course, you can Google it and it pops right up, but not being discussed by the media. And one of the things that I talked about during my presentation, Dunnigan, was I said, listen, as I go through these, I want you to ask yourself, you don't have to raise your hand, don't make a big deal about it, but ask yourself, have I heard about these things? And if I haven't heard about them, why not? And when you take a step back and realize all of these global shifts that are happening, and we're not really informed about it, we're told, there are breadcrumbs if you are so inclined to go looking for them, but we're not told about things that are incredibly pivotal that could actually reshape the whole global dynamic. And I think that was most of what people were taken back by, the fact that these are really, really very significant things, could very well do the dirty work for the Federal Reserve by allowing rates to rise, driven by market forces, not by the Fed. And that was really what I was getting at, was that the Fed has no interest in raising rates. They don't want to be written about in history books as being that group that blew up the American dream. But when you put all of these things together, as I've really tried to do redundantly, overly redundantly on your show for the past couple of years, I think a lot of people came away with the same feeling that I do, that we're this close to losing dollar hegemony. And when you see Saudi Arabia join the BRICS nations, or contemplating it, when you see the BRICS nations come out and issue a new world reserve currency, when you see all of the things that have been put in place, as I've termed it on your show, a linear progression of events, I think you can take a step back and say, geez, what if? And that was really what I, was the thrust of my presentation. When I came off the stage, Nomi Prince said, I'm so glad you talked about the Belt Road Initiative. People don't understand how big of a deal this is. Well, we've beaten this over the head incessantly on your show, and you're talking 75% of human population between Asia, Africa, parts of Europe, the old Silk Road, and the significance of this infrastructure program being void of U.S. participation, the significance of the settlement on the Belt Road all being in the new digital yuan. These are all things that are very, very relevant and very significant. So nothing new to your listeners, what I talked about, but to the people at the show, I think more than anything, their eyes were open to the fact that the media, even Fox media, where you think you're getting something a little bit more fair and balanced, as they call it, is ignoring potentially massive pivot points that I've been focusing on singularly for the last year and a half with you.
So in addition to your talk, there were a whole bunch of other speakers that people missed out on if they weren't able to attend the conference in person. But as I understand it, the other thing they'll get by looking at the online conference that Rick's going to be launching this Friday is his personal commentary and interviews with the way he questions and asks specific questions of the exhibitors. So people will get that in addition. And all of that is coming just a few days from now. So if everybody looks in the description of this video, they'll find extremely affordable, and it always has Rick's 100% money back guarantee. If you don't think the value is there, he'll give you your money back if you just email him. So no risk at all, and a great chance for people who couldn't make it out there in person. But it was a great privilege to be there and to meet so many of these people that we've met virtually, and finally to be able to see them in person, introduce them to our families. So it was great to see you and your wife there, and I know it was great to see so many of the other people that we've worked with through this media, and be able to be face to face was very rewarding.
Yeah, you forget just how significant human interaction is, and it's so different than just staring into a computer screen, which I have a hard time doing. Focusing on the camera, it's a hard thing to do, and when you can shake someone's hand and talk with them one-on-one, it's I don't know, it's the way communication is supposed to be. This is certainly open things up to getting the information out, through YouTube and to people. But I'll always take one-on-one or in a group setting live over this. And but if you weren't able to make it, you're right. You got some really significant speakers there. The ones that I mentioned: James Rickards, Daniel DiMartino Booth, Nomi Prince, Grant Williams. These are the best and the brightest in the industry. Very well worth listening to. The mining companies that are there. If you go to any other shows, typically there's 4 or 5 times as many mining companies than are at this show. These are the ones that were hand selected by Rick. And that means something to me. I've known him for a very long time. I have great admiration for him. And to have been selected as the sole precious metals company, and for the mining companies out there that were selected, it is a privilege. It is an honor, and I think should inspire confidence in the people who are going to listen. If you're looking to buy some mining shares, those companies that were there not only are personally selected by Rick, but he's personally owned stock in all of them. And I think if you're looking for an endorsement on a metals mining company, certainly one that Rick is involved with, has ownership in, and invites to attend his symposium, is a very good starting place to find those shares that you would like to add to your portfolio. And we don't really talk about mining shares often, but I do think that there's room in every portfolio for them. And I often cite a philosophy of a pyramid, where the base of your pyramid is things such as a paid-for home or a farm, physical precious metals. I used to say cash in the bank, but that's a little bit of a fleeting issue now with negative real return. But the middle portion would typically used to be something like treasuries. Same example. You have the negative real return, but maybe a utility stock paying off some sort of a dividend, and that would be more like 20% of your portfolio. So you have a base at 60 or 70 that's very conservative. You have the middle portion, slightly more risky, I guess you could say, throwing off some sort of return, preferably. And the top 10% of your financial pyramid would be things like cryptocurrencies and mining shares. And I'll tell you, you can earn more money in the top 10% than you can on the bottom 90%. And the theory that the Swiss have employed for nearly 300 years in this philosophy is just that if you lose everything on the top 10, you make nothing on the middle 20 or 30 at all, but just earn your 2 or 3 or 4% stable, secure, low risk return on the base of your pyramid. You don't go backwards. And there will come a time when these mining shares fully exert themselves, and I do think that the upside potential that they offer, the leverage that they offer, as beaten down as they've been, is extraordinary. And I think everyone should own some. And this is the best way to find out which ones perhaps to own than to start with the ones that are at this show.
Yeah, you mentioned, I think it was your wording to me about being there is being included in the circle of trust that people have come to expect and to receive from Rick Rule in the seasoned judgment and the disciplined approach, and just frankly the hard work that he has put in to make the decisions that he has, and that people can benefit from that hard work and that career of seasoned experience and good judgment. And in the character, he also selects companies not just by financial balance sheets and by specific event performance, but by the character of their leadership as well. So anyway, folks, if you missed the in-person conference in Boca Raton, just look in the description of this video. Make sure you sign up for the virtual conference, and you'll get to see Andy, and you'll get to see a lot of the other speakers that were there and hear Rick's commentary about it. It's really a rare opportunity. And I was just thinking, Andy, is there anything in the last week and a half since the conference wrapped up a week and a half ago Friday that has come across your radar that you want to make sure that people are aware of in this weekly market update?
I guess the one thing, there are a few things that I've noticed that I find to be a little shocking. The Fed initially claimed that they would be selling $60 billion worth of government debt per month and 35 million of mortgage-backed securities. And so in the last 19 weeks since the Fed even started really talking about this, it's only reduced its holdings of government debt by about $40 billion and of mortgage-backed securities by $21 billion. So the act of quantitative easing really is not happening, supporting what I was talking about, that I don't think they're the ones that want to light the fuse. And it's one thing to let rates rise, but what people really aren't talking about is the lack of running off their balance sheet, because it's far greater than just selling these assets. These are all interest rate sensitive assets that, as they are sold, will exacerbate the rate increase. And so it's something that I think that they are reluctant to do at best. I also want to talk about a little bit, we touched on this a little bit lately, but I heard a great interview from Rafi Farber, and I just wanted to touch on it a little bit. What Rafi says is that since silver squeeze, 285 million ounces of silver have been drained from the COMEX and from the LME. This is very significant. It goes along with what we were saying. And I'd like to just touch a little bit about what we said last week, that so far this year in gold, the other reportables that we've talked about have taken off 321 tons of gold off of the COMEX in deliveries, or 307,900 ounces in deliveries. And when we talk about backdooring SLV, you have 100 million ounces taken out of SLV over the past 4 months by the commercial banks. So we are seeing a massive drawdown, like we've been talking about, in metal from the LME and from the COMEX, and backdooring out of SLV. And so I think it's very important that people understand, and it comes across sometimes as being less than sincere when I try to say price really isn't the most important thing. Well, if you own it, yes, it is. You're thinking, well, what are you talking about? I bought it, it's worth less, or it hasn't done anything. But understand that the biggest money in the world, the most sophisticated, well-funded, well-informed traders on the planet are using these prices and this misdirection to drain the physical metal across the globe. And it's accelerating, and it isn't slowing down. So I think that's the one piece that people should take comfort in that, big money is not deterred by prices. In fact, they are using it perhaps even as a subsidy to accumulate and draw down physical holdings off the exchanges. And I think that's really something people should try and focus on when they are a little bit derailed, if you will, by prices that haven't performed the way that we expect them ultimately to. But here again, you wouldn't see these massive drawdowns, deliveries, which is so unusual in this industry, albeit for the last 2 years. The majority of the time I've been in this industry, you never saw this kind of drawdown whatsoever, where you're getting a decade's worth of deliveries in 1 year off of the COMEX and silver and in gold, and let alone backdooring huge amounts out of SLV or taking large deliveries off the LME. So I think it's something to help people realize that price is a tool of misdirection, and it is classic misdirection by big money who uses misdirection of rhetoric, the media, misdirection of price with levered futures contracts, and misdirection of, in that environment, of taking massive possession without really anyone talking about it. It only adds conviction to my belief that you are witnessing a global de-dollarization. They're doing it quietly. They're tiptoeing until the light shines on them and it turns to an all-out sprint. We're not there yet, but it will. And I think for people to realize the significance of this and use these manipulated, subsidized prices as a tool. One last thing that I'd like to talk about, it was on your show that I predicted a few weeks ago that we would see escalating premiums in gold eagles. They continue to rise and rise and rise, with the U.S. Mint curtailing production of all gold by 50% into the second half of the year, which made zero sense to me based upon silver being the larger of the two metals in terms of acquisition or percentage of sales. And here we are since that maybe early July prediction, if you will, and gold eagles are up over $100 an ounce, $165 or higher on gold eagles. This is, if it is anything like what we see in silver eagles, it's never come back down with silver eagles in 2 years. Is this a new reality in gold eagles? Not so sure, but if it is, I expect to see all gold premiums be dragged up by the higher eagle premiums. And I guess you could argue that's very similar to what we've seen with the silver eagle, and all premiums on all sovereign coins have risen to levels that, other than the last 2 years, is something that we've never seen before.